And 6:30, conservation meeting for Tuesday, April 4th, 2023. 6:30, Donald Brown Conference Room is now open. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for March 21st.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, new public hearing.
Oh, sorry, didn't print that.
I'm just put it
Fire
in.
away.
You just, you can just read the 44 South Main Street notice of intent
All right, so
for general stormwater permit.
new public hearing is 44 South Main Street, the general stormwater management permit for proposed redevelopment with new building, parking, and associated utilities. All right. New public
Ladies and
hearing.
gentlemen, thank you for having us tonight.
Doesn't seem like it's new, you've been here already.
Well,
This
for
is
those who don't know me, my name is Walter Hermano. I'm a professional engineer. I'm the design engineer for my client tonight, which is Outdoor Living Materials. Jordan Camara is sitting right there in the second row. If you have any questions about his business and what he's proposing on the property, feel free to ask him. What you have in front of you right here, we have our existing conditions. As you may well know, we've been before you before to have our wetland resources identified and approved, and we did that with an ORAD that was issued by the commission in January of 2022. We have on the property, we have floodplain, which is base flood elevation 49. We have under jurisdiction of the local bylaw, 2 isolated vegetated wetlands. We have 2 perennial streams, one being the Town River over here, and the other being Willowbrook over here. We have a BVW, which we have delineated as such. We also have a mean bank elevation over here on the Town River. We've conducted multiple test pits prior to this project by myself and also for this project to address stormwater infiltration. The overall site is roughly 18.5 plus or minus acres thereabouts. The actual project usable area outside of the BVW is about 8.5 acres. You have South Main Street right here for access to the property, and you have East Center Street for access over here. There's several hundred feet in both directions. It is a town center district zone piece of property. Any questions to this point?
Say there's an entrance on East Center? There will be.
There still will. There'll be an entrance on East Center also. Primary entrance, I believe, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's going to be through South Main Street.
South Main. You gonna have to make the entrance on East Center Street, or is it, you just gonna come off of what's there now?
I think we're just gonna use that section that's like elevated higher on. You're talking about that farther point? Yeah, just that one little section there.
On the next sheet, I'll show you that entrance.
Oh, on Main Street, yeah.
We have existing curb cuts on South Main Street. On East Center, it would be a new curb cut. So it'd be an ample entrance on this side, so the applicant can have through traffic for either his customers and or his own business trucks, which he intends, the business trucks are a forklift, a front end loader.
Yeah, they wouldn't be leaving the site though. Just for like trucks, like delivering material, us going out on deliveries. So we could, instead of going around in the intersection, I think it just makes it easier for the trucks that are turning around, just run right through. Yeah.
Either way.
Either way, yeah,
Can be both.
yeah.
While we're on the vehicles, they would be stored inside the building at night. The yard that he's proposing, this is not a contractor's yard. If anyone's curious, this is a retail business where he has an example currently running down in the Sonnet off of South Main Street. You can see it from Route 24. He sells hardscape materials, earthen materials. We have pallets proposed to be stored in this area right here. Street.
What type of retail? Just out of
We
curiosity.
sell mostly like hardscapes, granites, different types of bluestone, veneer, cultured stone.
Okay, so not, nursery stock
A
necessarily.
little bit, but not
Little bit.
much. Mostly like into like the, you know, the palletized stone product,
Right.
and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's all natural stuff, nothing's like gonna harm anything, you know, so.
Yeah.
This is the limit of the proposed yard, which will be entirely fenced off from the street. Here's some bins for materials, and there's several stockpiles for materials. And these are the pallets that will be stored. Now, there are no proposed structures going underneath the utility, underneath the electric lines. But the parking requirements are such that we have approximately 34 spaces right here.
Where's the, requires 34, where does that come from?
That's based on the square footage of the
Square
building
footage of the
and the
building.
intended use.
Okay.
I have had a discussion with the building inspector to see if he could weigh in and possibly give me some guidance on maybe reducing those spaces, because for most of the building, it's gonna be storage.
Right.
Try materials that cannot be left outside, they're wrapped in cardboard, or
Yeah.
they might.
Different, yeah,
be
palletized
ruined with the
material,
rain.
cement, stuff like that.
It's not for employees.
Yeah, it's not like it's an office building or anything like that.
No,
I
it's not a
couldn't
warehouse where it's
Nope.
gonna, not,
Can't
none of that,
understand where they get
the parking, right?
right now it's just the square footage of the building.
Yeah.
I suppose if it was, retail sales, you'd need the,
And to meet all the stormwater standards, which this project does, currently as a new development, not a redevelopment where you are afforded some liberties on certain standards, this currently meets the requirements straight up for a new development. There's a proposed infiltration basin right here that will be exclusively taking all the roof runoff. We have a sediment forebay with an infiltration basin over here, which will accept some of the parking lot runoff. The remaining parking lot runoff will go into the yard. And the entire yard gets picked up by a grass channel that wraps around it like this. The water will flow across the yard into the channel. The channel will have a good amount of capacity to convey the storms. It's been all designed, again, by the stormwater management standards. And the outlet for the grass channel is a wet basin. And everything that I'm pointing to right now, we have tried our best to stay as far away from the riverfront area as possible. There's extensive existing development down in this area between the former use as a golf cart,
oh, yeah.
a go-kart track in this area. There's close to 20,000 square feet of pavement. In this area over here was pitch and putt. There's several thousand more square feet. But the existing buildings that are on the property, there's 2 or 3 in this area, he plans to remove them also to reduce the impervious area. But he does intend to keep the one at the very back here just for some storage.
You're gonna remove all the
The asphalt?
asphalt?
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah, and the existing conditions plan shows a track with the approximate layout of the asphalt that's down there. I don't know if anyone remembers riding that as a kid. I did plenty of times, and he just got in big circles at that area. That is close to the river, but his intentions are to remove that asphalt and make it a permeable surface. You have one building here,
No.
another one here, then there's a third one there. Those will be removed.
No, is that gonna be, I know you spoke last time that it's possible you're gonna make like you're gonna clean it up and
Yeah.
then make it
Usable.
usable for like a
Town.
launch.
Yeah, I think Walter has it on there.
This area right here is a proposed easement public access to the town river. This little turnabout here can accommodate a few parking spaces. This is all a wrap surface. And that will be an official easement.
And it's got its own separate entrance right now.
Yep, right through here, the town users for that river can come right through here, down this pathway, and park in that area, and go through the woods and launch a kayak or a canoe. Obviously not for motorboats, but it is
Yeah.
for public access to the water. There'll be a drive that gets reconstructed, again, not asphalt, but wrap, to this building back here. And this will be gated off to keep his business separate from the public access. There'll be a septic system proposed in this approximate area where we have good soils. Speaking of soils, for most of the site, from about here down is what we call a B soil. Everything out here is a C or a D soil. So it's difficult to infiltrate through the C or D soils. It is possible. We have a little bit of infiltration here. But we are meeting, again, the infiltration requirements where we're achieving roughly 70% of the impervious area proposed will be infiltrated, where we're only required to do 65%. But we're at 70%. This wet basin is a very interesting structure. It will be a permanent pond, because it's a low spot. We're faced with a challenge since we're working in the floodplain. We did not want to fill in the lot because we could not find compensatory storage on the property. It's difficult.
That was gonna be one of my questions, was how we were gonna deal with any.
Right. Right. The lowest spots that will be filled are these two isolated vegetative wetlands. And in this area right here, we have proposed compensatory storage for those elevations that will be filled, just for those two isolated wetlands. For the remainder of the project inside this perimeter, it's basically a grading task. We're going to shift the grade on the property slightly without undermining any poles for the easement for the electric utility. And by doing that, we'll reach the compensatory requirements. So we'll have no net loss. We'll actually have a net gain. And I've also included the materials that he proposes to stockpile in that yard, because there is some storage when you put them on the ground at an elevation lower than 49. Anything lower than 49 is what we're concerned about for compensatory storage. The project will require a retaining wall on this side, well away from jurisdictional boundaries for environmental resources. There's a retaining wall that's required over here to hold the parking lot and to hold the grading. Again, very close to the 200-foot riverfront, but not quite touching it.
Is that what the red line is, the 200 foot?
Yes, the red line is a 200-foot boundary.
Yeah, and you're within the replication plan for the back there too, okay.
In this area right here,
Yeah.
we've stayed outside of that riverfront area.
Yep.
And the replication area is proposed because when we go before Army Corps engineers, they're gonna wanna see that on the plan, that we have a replication area for the isolated vegetative wetlands that we propose to fill. So rather than go back here, because I remember listening to the commission, and they said, why bother touching that area so far away? I have no other better area than right here at elevation 47 roughly to add a replicated area for wetlands. This area could use a little cleaning, sprucing up, so I contend it'll actually look nicer when it's all done. This area over here will be preserved, not touched. And for the most part, again, we are working on a footprint of the existing development on the property. And we are increasing the permeability of the property. And we meet all the standards that are required. We are in the process and will provide a wildlife habitat analysis in order to meet the regulations found in the Act. We have to ensure the wildlife will not be impeded by this project. And I believe, and I'm gonna talk to my expert on that, but we have an area that's more than 100 feet on average away from the river, within that 200-foot area that would justify, and again, I'll let my expert explain this, that will meet the requirements of the act.
Now, that small building down back in the corner there, you're gonna keep, is that structurally sound?
Yeah, it's just a
Is it
block
metal
built,
or-
it's blocks, cinder blocks.
Cinder block?
Yeah, cinder blocks with like a truss roof.
Okay.
And what's your intent to store in it?
Just probably like little things, minor stuff, you know what I mean? Like dry goods, maybe. It's a decent sized building. I figured it's better than knocking down.
I should finish and explain that the wet basin, it has a safety bench, and it also has what's called a aquatic bench. These are 10-foot level areas where if someone were to go in there, or an animal or person, you'd have 10 feet from the beginning to the end where it levels out. And you're very shallow water, maybe no water. And the aquatic bench, again, you would go down another grade change of maybe a foot, it levels out for 10 feet. Again, it's another safety feature, but it's also for plants and vegetation. And the standing water that's in the bottom of the pond, this will be no deeper than about 3 feet. And this is necessary and sized as required in order to accept the peak flows coming off the property, such that the pre-existing conditions are matched, if not we're better than after post-development. So we'll have lower peak flow and lower peak volume leaving the property, because all this runoff that's leaving the site right now is going into the surrounding wetlands. There is one little area up here that accepts a couple of small buckets of water, but it's not going to be that way after this development, but that will bleed out in this direction to the surrounding wetlands as well. The wetlands are the primary receptor for any runoff from the property, so we want to ensure that we're meeting all the applicable standards and that the conditions post-development are better than conditions pre-development. Sediment forebay, infiltration basin, remove total suspended solids and other pollutants. The wet basin goes one step further. It also can remove metals. It can remove, for example, lead, zinc. It's taking advantage of the plants that might uptake the metals. This is not intended to be a fish pond.
Yeah, now I was gonna say, it's like, the top of that is gonna be, is that something you're gonna be with plants? Is it gonna be, kind of, not landscape, but it's gonna be kept neat, not overgrown to the point where it's not gonna do its job to,
Well, if there's a few vegetation plants that take in this area, which there will be some plantings to get it started.
yeah.
They'll grow. They're going to be in or at the water table, especially on the aquatic bench. That's where the vegetation is going to start and be planted. In 3 feet of water, we're not going to plant anything there. I don't know anything that's going to survive in 3 feet of water. But on the safety aquatic bench, there'll be plantings. And on the top, on the berm, it's just a grass berm at elevation 47. And we had to keep this thing low because, again, we didn't want to fill in the floodplain. And the current elevation in this area is roughly 46, so the top of berm is going to be 47, but the bottom of the pond is going to be about, I believe I have it at elevation 41. So you see, we're considerably coming down on the project in that area. Again, much of this area was already pre-developed. So the attempt would be to handle all the stormwater management here without filling the floodplain, and also restore this area to look more natural. The outlet for this berm would be before the building, under the road, to a flared-end swale over here where we pick up an elevation of approximately 43. Again, since this is so low, I have to have my outlet at a lower point, and that's the closest point and lowest elevation possible for the outlet.
post-construction water flow, only because I know some of the neighbors are concerned about direction. Most of it's gonna be heading across to the river. So some will be captured in the top 4 bays in that area, but
Yep.
the most will be heading
To that.
across the, just because
And
I,
we're taking, right, Walter, like where that wall is, we're taking that grade down. That's creating more storage, right? Under the easement.
Yeah, you have a slight change in grade over
Grade,
here where
yeah.
it comes down a bit in order to compensate for flood storage
Yeah.
that's needed. But to answer your question, Tim, the water coming out of this basin, this open basin, flows right here towards the wetlands, which
Yeah.
will get picked up in Willow Brook.
and then around.
And Willow Brook will go this way and down where it meets the town river. And the roof, that goes into this basin right here. This is not designed, nor does it have to be, to accept a 100-year storm, but there's a tremendous amount of recharge that goes on, which is important to recharge your impervious areas. It will have any excess during the larger storms that bleed out into the grass channel. And all the runoff from the front of the project, it's all gonna continue to go into the site as it does now. So in general, your water's gonna flow across the property like this. Hit these grass channels, go through here where you're gonna have a good amount of storage and settlement of pollutants. And then when it gets to the outlet, it will slowly bleed out and go where it was gonna go in the first place, right to the town river.
If it ever overflows.
Right.
You know, the one on, where I live, has never even come close to the overflow at all. You know, we have a big basin, but it's just never.
This, I haven't seen this in my lifetime, but this elevation of 49,
Mhm.
that's the base flood elevation. I've been looking at the project for a couple of years, and I'm familiar with the area, but I never remember seeing it that high. But technically, it can go all the way up to 49.
Hmm.
So to answer your question, this would likely overflow when we have such a flood, if it ever went up to elevation 49, because the top of the berm is 47 down here.
Would
Yeah.
that, you consider, would it overflow with a 100-year flood
No,
amount? Still wouldn't, you don't think?
no, this should not. We've factored in the maximum rainfall for the 100-year event, and it should not overflow.
Good.
We have at least a foot, maybe a foot and a half of what I call headspace storage above the berm to the very highest point inside that basin. I mean, if the water's ever come up to 49,
The whole thing.
we're gonna have a lot of problems in
Yeah.
a lot of towns if they ever
Yeah.
get that high. So, but we are holding that, that's the FEMA information, and elevation 49 is the floodplain.
Now, is there anything gonna be done with Willow Brook up at the end there? Like, is there gonna be any kind of cleaning out there to make sure everything flows good, or is that something you guys aren't gonna bother touching?
I don't think we're gonna-
We're not planning to disturb
Okay.
the existing conditions on Willow Brook. As close as we are proposing to get to it would be this replication for wetlands, which would be actually.
And that shouldn't disturb anything with that?
You're creating actually additional storage capacity.
Yeah.
We're lowering the grade in that area, but we can't take that into consideration for compensatory storage. It's a disadvantage, but
How do you define that compensatory storage? I don't know if I've heard that term before.
We've had a couple other projects that they've had to,
And storage for overflow?
well, for the floodplain, if we were to go to that 100-year storm,
Yeah.
they have to, if they're gonna fill in, they have to compensate for the amount of fill where they're putting it somewhere else
Okay,
within that floodplain.
gotcha.
Scotland Street had to do that as well for the 40B.
Right.
and it has to be at the same incremental levels. Just because I'm filling 46 down here, if I took a little from 49 up here and tried to say, hey, that's equal, no, it's not. I have to find another elevation that's 46 and lower that, and that's why we have this area over here
Alright.
proposed. Because this area inside of here is only 44 to 45 roughly, which matches this area over
All
here.
right.
And again, you can't really see it on this picture of the existing conditions, but the former footprint, there's some utility poles that are way back here and fencing that goes in the back and inside. The whole area was utilized for a pitch and putt golf course. It hasn't been used for some years now, and it's left to be overgrown, kind of looks like meadows with a few thickets on it and other vegetation. But it was all previously a pre-developed site, and we're trying to stay well back from that previous footprint with this proposal.
What's been your biggest challenge with this project?
Biggest challenge is finding the compensatory storage in the floodplain. I'll
It's
put
a
little-
difficult site,
A little
period.
caveat to that is the
Yeah.
actual regulatory process and the multiple steps along the way has also been challenging. April 20th, we're to meet with the new town manager and have a developer staff meeting to capture input from the other boards. We did this about a year ago with the building inspector who solicited the different boards. I understand there's a new process here. Tim informed me. Thank you, Tim, and we're gonna meet with them on April 20th. So before I forget, at the end of the night tonight, we'll ask for a continuance to May 4th, I believe, because we can't act on it until we hear input from the developer staff meeting. The other board.
Just in case there's major changes or something that goes really off on what he's proposing.
The applicant also has to go before the ZBA for a special permit for the town center district for this use. It is, the intended use is approved with a special permit. It's not a by right use.
And you have to keep that updated every year or so, that special permit? Do they consider that something, or is it just a one-time thing?
One time.
Anybody have any questions in the audience?
I do.
Go ahead.
So I live across the street on East Center Street, next to Willow Brook. To the right side
Right up
of
there.
Willow Brook, you'd see
Yep.
that, right next, right. The brook is.
The brook's right beside our house,
It's
and
a bound.
last year the brook was not
Yes,
flowing.
and it was congested at some point, we couldn't figure out where it was, and finally the street department did come and figure it out and cleaned it out. So, and they told me that previously Bunce's had been taking care of that brook and keeping it from the debris from yeah, and obstructing the flow. So, I wonder if you watching that,
Yeah.
that issue, you know.
Yeah, 'cause it's on this pretty much the side of
And
the
that's
property.
Yeah, it's your
when
side,
I
it's on your
Yeah,
side.
I thought you meant like cut stuff down or something, like make
No,
it like
just-
presentable, just kind of.
No, we have
No,
other
it's the
people in
flow.
town that have similar situations with brooks and streams, and they've come before us asking if
Especially,
they can have an exemption so they can do clean outs of down trees and limbs.
Oh, all
and-
right, yeah,
And I mean, it, realistically, for you, you're not gonna want it to block, because
No,
that's
'cause it-
emptying the water from the
Yeah.
site, so it's just gonna back it up
Yeah,
into your
yeah,
site
yeah.
as well, so.
and with you being right there,
yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
you can just go over and just keep an eye on
Keep
it
an
if
eye on
something
it,
ever
make sure it's
happens
flowing, yeah.
with high winds or something like that.
Yeah,
I've walked much of this property until I couldn't go any further into the water. This section of Willow Brook is a very shallow brook.
Was it on my side?
Oh, no.
It must
Maybe
be-
that's why it was shallow.
I mean,
Depends on when you
I
walk
feel
it.
like it was like a dead end.
water or
something.
not, the channel depth is very shallow, where it kind of flattens out on the Willow Brook side of, this side of East Center Street. I don't know exactly what it looks like on your side of East Center Street. I have looked at the water at one time. I was examining the head wall. We were looking for a benchmark when we were doing the survey. And there was a tremendous amount of water that was actually flowing through, and that was fall of 2021. And the water was flowing pretty good underneath that section of the East Center Street through that culvert at that time.
Last year was probably late spring when it started, when I started to notice it was stagnant. And like I lost the bark off the bottoms of the trees along the brook and, you know, it was stagnant for a long time.
Well, if the applicant's willing and the commission allows, you know, we can keep that area maintained as best as possible.
Yeah, I mean, just occasionally, with the weather we've been having, you'll get a blowdown across
Yeah.
the whole section, so if you needed to cut out a 4 or 5 foot section to,
Yeah.
I mean, I know Walter's right, it is pretty flat across the whole area. It's not a deep gorge depression for a stream, but
No heavy machineries.
Yeah. That's important. I know.
We're not before you to make that channel any deeper. You know, we're not trying to do that. We're trying to keep our hands off of the wetlands in that area. To Tim's point, I have seen a fallen tree or two that actually did obstruct our survey, getting in and around thorns, and
Still
there's a couple
there.
of trees that were falling over in that area. So that can happen, I do understand that.
And I have one other
Go right
question.
ahead.
On East Center Street, you want an access on that side.
Yeah.
You do know what the traffic's like on East Center Street, right? At the center.
At the center, yeah.
It's terrible.
I just think it would make things a lot easier. Yeah, I'm not talking maybe like a main
Yeah,
access.
really, that's your business.
Yeah.
But to take a left there while when traffic's coming out,
It's kind of like.
yeah, I was gonna say
Terrible.
that the planning,
Terrible.
depending on how zoning goes, they may say right turn in
Right
and
turn
out
only,
kind of
yeah.
thing or
You
something
know what
like
I'd
that.
be
Maybe.
afraid of
I
is,
mean,
is people
Or
using it as a
like
cut
like if
through.
you're coming
Right.
right turn in.
Right turn in, and when you exit, right,
Right
taking
turn.
a left out of there.
Yeah, I see
Through
what she's
Plaza
saying,
before?
yeah.
But
It's more of like,
I've done it
if I come out the other way, I have
That's
to loop
right.
all
I've
the way
done it
around.
that sitting
Right.
behind it
You know,
before,
it's easier for the trucks
years
to
ago.
get in and out.
and they've gone onto it.
Oh, I've done it by mistake when I was going the wrong way, because coming through the new improved intersection, which it is improved.
Right,
If you're-
once you understand how it
If you're the
flows.
first timer going through there, you better be careful, but
No,
I was not in the right lane to continue to go
it's gonna be
down
fenced
Yeah.
up.
South Main, so I said, oh, I can't, I'm gonna cut somebody off, so I kept my left over here and
Yep,
I cheated, I went through the plaza. And I said, I hope no one sees me do that. But I don't make that a regular, but it has happened, and how would we prevent that from happening over here? I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
people trying to cut off the lights, cut through.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
I mean, I've gone behind the buildings on the shopping center a few times too, just in the alley behind it. I guess you could figure something out,
Some
so,
signs up.
Some speed bumps.
yeah,
Speed bumps, signs.
Couple signs, not a throughway,
there you go.
might work.
Write a few tickets and.
I don't know if you could, would you have maybe like a gate when you close?
Well, yeah, that's,
At night?
so, when we're closed, that whole place closes down, you can't get in there.
So you won't be able to go through it.
No,
and take care
no,
of it.
yeah, there'll be a gate at the top, and then there'll be
Alright.
another gate down at the bottom.
So that's not there for
yeah.
that.
There you go.
Yeah, the whole place is pretty much be fenced in.
Right, so.
There'll be no gate in the front though for this public access.
Yeah, that,
No,
That's gonna be
separate. Yeah,
open
that'll be
24/7.
separate.
It can
That's
be
a
challenging
nice
getting
little
across this
addition.
road too. We've had to walk on the other
Right,
side to
it's-
do the survey, and you have to time it. I mean, there's plenty of clear sight distance, but you gotta time it. Actually, my surveyor, we were parked up on the bridge, and fortunately, because I told him, I said, listen, we gotta be careful here, we put some cones up.
Yeah.
What do you know? Somebody didn't take the turn, and they actually plowed into the rear end of his vehicle. And
Really?
he was on the other side of it. Fortunately, he didn't get hurt, but it does happen, and people just don't pay attention. So, but there is plenty of clear sight, so it should not be a matter of difficulty to get in and out of the property. Over here, maybe a different story if traffic is backing up, but again, you know, they can turn around and come out through this side. There's the parking spaces, the parking lot, full-size parking lot, 10 by 20 spaces with 24 feet in between. Yeah.
yeah, it's not gonna be real convenient.
And again, this may be way too many spaces, and we're not trying to put down pavement. Again, as I said before, we'll talk to the official and ZBA and see if spaces can be reduced.
Yeah, I'm definitely for that. only considered for storage, it's nothing,
Right,
let's see if we can cut that back as much as we can.
customers
If
in and out.
it's
What the parking is saying?
parking.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, what about,
Any other questions?
That's not, the traffic thing is, I think it's gonna be more of a, the onus is gonna be on you.
Yeah, yeah.
And the function more than, the traffic itself.
And unfortunately, I mean, I know we don't like wet basins, just because of Triple E and West Nile and that whole thing, but for this site, you're kind of stuck. There's not much of a choice that you can do with it.
There
Just-
isn't anything you can do
Right.
short of this, I don't
It's
think.
it's
very
right there
challenging.
anyway, so.
Very challenging because of the floodplains.
Say that again. I'm all set.
Well, 53.
I mean, I would recommend, because of the amount of stormwater and the floodplain that we have to deal with, that 53G would be,
Yeah, I think for everyone,
I mean,
it's probably a good thing
So
to do.
second set of
Just
eyes
'cause
on it,
I know some of the other committees are gonna wanna make sure it's looked at, so.
All right, I mean, I'll entertain a motion to recommend a 53G.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Could I add that we don't act on it immediately because
Um,
we may have changes coming up? It'd be
Yeah,
more productive.
I'll give you a call probably tomorrow. We can figure out what your schedule is with them, and we won't send anything out until after you have the meeting with the whole departments, and that way we're not wasting anybody's money on something that.
It's a good thing to have on a commercial property, that way,
Oh, checks and balances.
yeah.
And everybody's
I'm not
gonna
all
look at it.
knowing, somebody
Yeah,
says, hey, Walter,
you're
how
right.
about
It's gotta
this,
be a
this, and this?
centerpiece, everybody's
We have
gonna-
opinions, we can
Try
go.
and make it as nice as I
Make
can, you
it-
know?
Make it right, because it's gonna be a showpiece, I guess you wanna say, but do it right.
It'd be a nice
Not
use
much there
in
now.
that area. Right now,
I think of a few people that I've said to, they said, oh, at least it's gonna be someplace that's gonna be cleaned up to what it looks like now.
Yeah, and it's homeowner friendly, so any person in West Bridgewater, Easton, or wherever, they can go buy products, and we deliver locally, you know what I mean? We're
Sure.
just a local business,
Sure.
so.
When you wanna continue this, so.
May 2nd
is it May 2nd?
would be our next, our
I got my
first one in
dates
May.
mixed up. Thank you.
And that
May
would-
2nd then?
Sure.
Okay, so entertain a motion to continue to May 2nd.
Make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, folks. Have a great night.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
So that's gonna allow you to go, you have another hearing?
Not tonight.
No, I mean before May 2nd?
We have a meeting on April 20th
Okay.
with planning.
See what they have
It'll
to
be
say.
Planning,
Planning,
Directly.
zoning, and typically the Board of Health's there, the fire department, police department, everybody
So then they come back.
shows up and
Yeah.
gives their 2 cents and says what they see as problems or concerns, and,
Yeah.
Well, this came in front of us then, so it.
yeah, I mean, you
Usually
did
they say-
that with us individually earlier in the process.
Right.
But now with the new town planner, that we're trying to get it done earlier and all at once, so it saves you from having to make stops everywhere.
yeah, it's good to get the entire input, from the town, and I'll receive this process and embrace it, because you get to talk to everybody and get their input at the same
At
time,
one time.
which is okay. And the building inspector did good also by us, by circulating it a year ago, and that was the process then. Now we're following the process now. So
So far so good, you guys have been doing,
we're trying.
showing us that
I forgot how
you're willing
long
to
it's
work,
been.
so.
It's
I
been-
know, I'm trying to make it a little bit faster.
When do you
but-
plan on,
It's not my
Starting.
client's fault, it's all on me.
Say it again?
when do you plan on starting, if this all goes the way it's supposed to go?
As soon as we can, that would be the plan.
Yeah, we also have to go before Army Corps. First CVA, Army Corps, and also for water quality certificate from the state. So, depending on their schedules. There is also a filing I believe we're gonna do with LEPA, just to advertise it properly, because we are filling in more than 5,000 square feet of any wetland.
Mm.
So, we have a few agencies to go through.
Hopefully quickly.
Hopefully you won't see it next year.
If the project was started next year, that would be a very realistic goal.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Like this time next year, or time, if everything goes, what do you think, Walter?
Good.
I'm just hoping.
Let's
Well, if you're going like this with us, I mean, that's pretty good. You're going along pretty good then.
Alright, cool.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Have a great
Thanks,
night.
guys.
Thank you.
All right, boss.
All right, next one is continue public hearing for 307 South Main Street.
And they have requested a continuance. We got the first 53G review yesterday. So I haven't even fully read it myself yet.
In the first, there's only one, right?
Right. It looks like it's just a lot of minor bullet points, things that need to be addressed for the plans, minor things. So hopefully if they can work together, get those all done, the next meeting, we'll be able to finish that one up maybe.
Good.
So that would be
April.
to the 18th, continuing it.
May?
April 18th.
Oh, April 18th, okay.
Yeah.
So entertaining the motion to continue to April 18th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And next one is 586. I'll do both of them. Well,
And
Pending.
those, again, they're getting close. I would continue it till the 18th. And
okay. I'll entertain a motion to continue 586 Manley Street, both of them, to April 18th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next one is 81 Ash Street for the request of a certificate of compliance.
And the report on that one is, Carol and I actually did that site visit to inspect it. And that was one that they had done some clear cutting out behind their property on one of the new houses on Ash Street and had to plant 18 red maple trees as part of the replacement. They're all planted, the markers are on the posts, and everything's
How
complete.
much clear cutting did they do? Lot?
It wasn't a huge area. I
Oh.
mean, the size of this room may be a little bigger.
Oh, okay.
But-
And posts are in
The
and,
posts are, we required a split rail fence at the time, and the
Yeah.
markers are on the split rail fence.
okay,
The trees are all alive, all of them have buds, so.
good.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next one is 15 Maple Street for request of certificate of compliance.
And this one is one of those old files that goes back to the 80s, and Carol and I went on that one as well. It was actually for a culvert to put a driveway and a crossing in to get to the property when they put in a septic system. And the culvert, it was a partial certificate request, never fully completed. And the sale of the property is going through and they need to clean up the files. Everything's stabilized, everything's there. There's nothing wrong with it. So I would recommend issuing a certificate.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to issue the certificate of compliance.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Talk about anything else?
That's all I have, and at this point, there are no new filings for next meeting. So,
Oh, Tim?
Yep.
One question. Did we approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Yeah,
yes, I'm sorry, I didn't have the mic on. We did that first thing.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And
so,
No problem.
if you look at the note on your agenda, the 40 United Drive,
Yeah.
just a reminder, that's for 6/6, continued to.
so you'll let us know with regard to the next one?
Yeah.
That's,
And that may,
That's just-
depending on the turtle study, be continued. We'll wait and see how that comes in.
okay. Anybody got anything else to say?
No.
No, all set. Okay, I'll motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, Steve.